The whole machloket on Bet Amud Bet about the different time periods of day and night and everything.
Yeah.
It then jumps into the third whether Rabbi Eliezer holds is there 3 hours in the night or whether there's 4 hours in the night.
3 hours?
3 watches of the night.
Okay,
three
yeah,
watches
3
of the night and 4 watches of the night.
Yeah, okay.
Where did this just pop into the conversation at?
Okay.
Because his original thing is that he holds that there's only the first part of the watch is the time to end Shema.
Okay, so here's how it goes. Where do you get the concept of an hour? A person, let's say, it's the 2nd century in Palestine, Babylonia. How do you know it's the 2nd hour of the day or the 3rd hour of the day?
Simanim, I guess, which is
What means simanim?
Which is what they bring. There's like when the donkey bars and the
that's the thing to know like before dawn but why are they giving simanim like that? If it was the 3rd hour of the day until you look at the donkey or look at the rooster or whatever, they would know the hour by looking at the sundial.
Okay.
Sundials don't work before sunrise. So before sunrise, how are you supposed to anticipate? If you don't have a modern watch telling you the sun will rise in 12 minutes, you have to make a very good estimation by the amount of light or looking for 12 minutes, 6 minutes before sunrise. You have no real degree of accuracy. Then, okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, there's no accuracy if the sun's not shining. On a clear night, there's a big difference between, let's say, the 16th of the month and the 1st of the month. If it's the 1st of the month, there's no moon.
Right.
If it's the 16th of the month, you have almost a full moon, but not only that. Well, it might even be waning, but it's visible early in the morning. So it's that day is much brighter in the morning than, let's say, the 1st of the month. So if you're doing relative brightness, now you're going to go check this out. You have to do this on clear days when there's no clouds, of course. But the relative brightness before dawn on the 16th day of the month, when the moon is basically full and it's still quite above the horizon, even before sunrise, and well, a little bit after sunrise also, it's a very bright morning. But on Rosh Chodesh, it's a very dark morning.
Right.
Okay, so there's nothing to go by. During the day, you use a sundial. Everybody's supposed to know how to use a sundial. It used to be part of the handbook for the Boy Scouts. Know how to make a sundial wherever you are.
I think they have one in Yerushalayim, if I'm not mistaken.
They have sundials all over the place. It's part of it. They used to have a major shul on Jaffa Street near the Shuk, where it was the Zorei Hama building. They have special clocks in it. They came up with clocks, but you had to use a sundial in the old days. So sundial is how you know what time it is of the day. If it's nighttime, you have no concept of hours because there's no sun at night. Sundial doesn't work at night. If the moon takes a different, I guess, not a different path every night, but it does. Its path changes across the sky, but it rises and sets at a different day, at a different time every single day. It basically retrogrades. It advances by an hour. What does that mean? If the sun rose today at, sunrise today was, moonrise today. Well, moonrise will be, let's say, around midnight today, not even much later. Moonrise will be like 3 a.m. and it'll set at like 3:30 p.m. And the next day it'll rise at 4 a.m. and set like 4:30 a.m., 4:30 p.m.
So you're saying there's a 30 minutes difference?
Well, whatever it is, you can check it out. Look, I'll read it to you right now. My phone tells me these things because I care about this. Okay, I'm looking for the moon. It's almost Rosh Chodesh. We're a week before Rosh Chodesh. So the moon should rise before I check it out. Hey, tonight is the 22nd of the month. The moon should rise a little bit after midnight and set tomorrow afternoon a little bit after 1. Now we're going to check exactly based on this. Look, it tells me moonrise today, 11:30 p.m. and moon set will be tomorrow. Moon set will be tomorrow at around, hold on a second. Why is it saying this? No, moonrise today at 11:30 and moon set will be at 11:30.
Okay,
like I predicted. And on Friday, according to this, the moon set will be at 11:58. And it won't even rise on that calendar day. It was done on the secular calendar. Okay. And then it will rise again early Shabbos morning at 12:27 and set Shabbos afternoon at 12:24. Okay. So you can't use the moon to tell you the hour of the night. It just doesn't work. Okay. So how would they know the hours of the night? There's no real way. Unless you're an expert astronomer and you can use an astrolabe and there's things you can do, but That's not for regular people, and sometimes it's really dark. So what do you do to know? How do you know what time it is at night for anything?
You look for indications.
Yeah, indications or a very rough estimate. They know when a certain constellation is rising in the east and setting in the west. So you could divide it instead of into 12, the nighttime, you divide into watches, which is basically a quarter or a third of the whole night. Okay, that's why they bring up the idea of watches now, because just like we discussed that you have a certain number of hours of the day to say Shema in the morning, the opinion here is saying that there's a certain time by into the night that you should say it. That's considered b'shoch b'cha, when you go down when you go to sleep. Technically speaking, you could say Shema all night, even just right before dawn.
Right.
But is that when people normally go to sleep? Yeah, is that when people normally go to sleep? So Rabbi Gamliel in the Mishnah, yeah, you have all night to say it. But it stands to reason that other sages would disagree with Rabbi Gamliel. They'd say that maybe the sages felt that there's a siyag you have until midnight, or you could conjecture all sorts of ideas that say it's proper to say Shema the first third of the night, the first quarter of the night. So that's why they introduced the idea of watches. They're talking about this, so they have to tell you. You have to know when the watches are.
But now, when it comes to the idea of when the donkey brays, when the child cries and when the woman wakes up to have a conversation with her husband, how are these like the donkey bear? Like my dad grew up on a farm. I didn't grow up on a farm.
Yeah.
So how do I understand that concept of the donkey bear to understand that this is the indication of this is the first part of the watch?
Well, how do you understand it? Because you can't. It's irrelevant to you. But in the olden days, you should just know. Well, we have donkeys on this yeshuv. There's a population of donkeys. They live up the hill. Okay, but in the olden days, having regular behemoths like donkeys, cows, not pigs, sheep, etc., goats especially, that was just a normal thing. Like if you didn't have it, and you were even a farmer, if you didn't have one, at least someone else, a neighbor, had one or two.
And so by people basically studied their behavior to realize
people knew that donkeys, everybody knew the donkey. Everybody knew what a donkey does. A donkey's stubborn, the donkey does this, the donkey has certainly, and the donkey makes a noise at a certain time of day. Have you ever heard the rooster crow in the morning?
Actually, one time I did.
There are a few on my block. The Rosh Kola here tells people you can only say the bracha when you really hear an actual rooster. Literally. Sechwi is a rooster. And I told them, I hear the rooster every morning. I walk out of my house maybe an hour before sunrise, and I hear the roosters. It's like, what are you talking about? There's no roosters around here. I don't know what to tell you, but I have two neighbors who have a bunch of roosters. So for people in the olden days, roosters used to crow at the end of the night. That's what they do. They don't crow at 9 p.m. They crow at 4 a.m. So it's a normal thing.
Okay,
everybody grew up with these types of things knew about it. How could not have a rooster?
But now with the child crying, like this, the nursing child crying in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
How was a person supposed to understand this? Just because
most people have children. Most people have children.
All right, but what about like young guys who don't have children?
Yeah, so you have a kid, you'll learn your lessons quickly.
Okay. And then the woman in the conversation. So, but when the woman is talking, that doesn't seem to be a continuation of the night. That seems to already be going into daytime.
So people used to wake. People were healthy. So people forgot. Electric lights and coffee ruined us.
Okay.
Electric lights make it that our brains are messed up and we stay up much later. We force ourselves to stay up. And we drink caffeine and artificial processed sugar that wakes us up. But in the olden days, people used to go to sleep much earlier. What is it? How much time do you have to light your Hanukkah candles? Ad shetichle regel min hashuk. Right?
Then when people are regularly in the
shuk. Well, they say it's about half an hour. That means half an hour after sunset, streets are empty. Who would go out that late? Rabbi Gamliel's sons went out to the wedding earlier in the evening. Yeah, it means they started their mishta before it was Tzman Kriyat Shema. And they stayed in someone's house all night, someone in the neighborhood. But in Achinami, they didn't have automobiles. Traveling at night was basically dangerous, life hazardous. So no one traveled at night, and people used to live differently, and it was normal. Like the Rambam says, you want to be healthy. The Rambam couldn't himself live up to these standards because he was too busy. But he'd say, you go to sleep 8 hours before Alos. It's dawn. And you wake up at dawn. Everybody wakes up at dawn. It's a normal time. People would get out, and people didn't have a rush. They didn't have alarm clocks. So a man and a woman who lived together would wake up around dawn. So they'd start talking. The man would get out and start his day. The the Talmud describes it. Probably going to get up to this. Soon, day laborers walk to work in the time before sunrise.
Right.
That's why they're walking, and they could say Shema when they're walking, but they have to stop to say Shmones, right? And a few hours into the day, they'd stop to eat some bread. Yeah, and they eat some bread with hummus or tchina.
Hummus.
It says tchina also. Sum. They'd eat kitnis. Kitnis is usually made out of peas, beans, hummus, or tchina.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basic stuff. That was also ubiquitous in Mishnaic times. Who doesn't eat that? You know? And that's what life was. You know, you worked hard all day. You know, and women worked hard all day and worked hard outside the house doing stuff, preparing raw materials and making income. And women had to be home, taking care of children, making food, making clothing, and cleaning clothing. That was everybody's life, unless you were really wealthy, in case you had servants doing that for you. You know? Yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
Yes. So yeah. This whole conversation over here about the different watches and everything, why then are there Rishonim who go and give an agadic interpretation to what this means?
Because there's agadic interpretations to what these things mean.
But if this is something that's about practical life, why does it have to have like? So maybe I'm not understanding the Gadata then.
Yeah.
So then, what is a Gadata that we use it intertwined with halakhic ramifications?
Yeah, they throw in Agadatas all over the place.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's good lessons there. The Gemara, if you're a newcomer to Gemara, take the biggest Masech, the Bava Basra. There's no topic not discussed in Bava Basra.
There's not one?
No topic not discussed. Ostensibly, Bava Basra is the last part of Nezik. It's supposed to be like, what is it?
The last
law. No, it's civil law, inheritance, dividing of property, and things like that. Yet they somehow managed to talk about everything under the sun.
Okay.
And large sections of Agadata. Yeah, it's like free association Torah study.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to do, and there's going to be lessons. Sometimes you shouldn't mix Agadata and Halakha, but sometimes there's actually a lesson from Halakha that you learn from Agadata.
What do you mean you shouldn't miss them? Like when it comes in the Gemara, you're saying you should just skip it?
Sometimes, no, you shouldn't skip it, but sometimes there's an Agadic passage, and someone wants to say, well, this means that the Halakha should be this and that. But that's not the case. Sometimes in the Agadic passage, there's, let's say, people understand how to understand Agadata on the partial, let's say, Chumash. For every nice Agadata that they hear that tells you something, there's always the contradiction. There's a different Agadata which says otherwise. Tell people the best example is Chelek. Sanhedrin has a lot of Agadatas, and there you can read about how Bilam was one of Pharaoh's advisors for the servitude. Mm-hmm. So Bilam was around before the servitude started, and he was around there for. Moshe Rabbeinu was born towards the beginning of the servitude and was 80 years later, and then Bilam comes into play, 40 years later, right? So Bilam is well into his hundreds when he meets his death in the book of Numbers. Yet the other matter says he was 35 when he was killed, which means he was born after the Exodus. So these two Agadatas cannot be resolved. The answer is, doesn't really matter, like the Rama says. It doesn't. You definitely can't learn Halakha from these things. They're not trying to teach you Halakha. Every Agadata has its purpose, its lesson. So you have to learn each one on its own. You could start reading the Agadata, and that's why not the Ram. There's Maharsha. Mm-hmm. There's Steinsaltz does a very good job with dealing with these Agadata passages. I found, referencing, telling you where to look. Mm-hmm. So you just have to look for that.